For more than 6 decades, Donny Osmond has lived under bright lights, smiling through applause, heartbreak, and reinvention. Audiences have watched him grow from a 5-year-old singing on national television to a Las Vegas headliner performing beside a digital version of his younger self. But while the world has seen almost every chapter of his career, one person has remained almost invisible. At 66, Donny is finally speaking honestly about why his wife Debbie is rarely by his side in public, and the answer is more painful than glamorous. A childhood without normalcy. Donny Osmond was born on December 9, 1957, in Ogden, Utah, the 7th child of Olive May and George Osmond. He did not grow up in a quiet home. He grew up in a house filled with music, responsibility, and expectation. 2 of his older brothers, Verl and Tom, were born deaf, which meant sign language became part of daily communication. Faith shaped everything. The family belonged to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and discipline, modesty, and service were not suggestions, they were rules. By the time most children were learning to read, Donny was already performing. His older brothers had been discovered after appearing on a Disneyland special, and soon they became regulars on the Andy Williams Show. When Donny was 5, he walked onto that stage and sang, "You Are My Sunshine." The moment was charming to audiences. To Donny, it was the beginning of a life that would never be normal. He did not have childhood friends in the usual sense. He has said that his friends were grown men like Andy Williams, Jerry Lewis, Milton Berle, and Bob Hope. He watched how they controlled an audience. He studied how they told jokes. He absorbed how Elvis Presley could hold a room silent just by standing still. That was his education. But fame at that age creates something fragile. When children are applauded before they understand themselves, they grow up confused about who they are without applause. Donny would later admit that while the world saw a confident young performer, inside he often felt like a boy trying to please adults. That need to please would follow him into adulthood and into his marriage. Teen, idol and the beginning of pressure. In the early 70s, Donny Osmond was no longer just a talented child from a musical family. He was a national obsession. His face covered magazines like Tiger Beat, 16, and Flip. His soft voice on Puppy Love transformed him into the safe, clean-cut dream boy for millions of teenage girls. Concert venues filled with screaming fans who cried, fainted, and reached desperately just to touch him. Security guards had to escort him through crowds. The hysteria looked flattering from the outside. Inside, it was overwhelming. The image was carefully constructed, wholesome, polite, modest, faith-driven. The Osmonds were presented as the perfect American family. Donny was the smiling golden boy who never misbehaved, never swore, never rebelled. But maintaining perfection is exhausting, especially when you are still figuring out who you are. He has admitted that while fans saw confidence, he often felt trapped inside a version of himself created for public consumption. When Donny and Marie launched, the pressure intensified. He and his sister became the youngest co-hosts of a primetime variety show, a historic achievement. Their chemistry was effortless because they had grown up together. But television demanded more than charm. It demanded consistency. Every week required performances, rehearsals, scripted humor, and an unbreakable smile. There was no room to show fatigue, no space to confess doubt. Behind the bright lights, Donny was a teenager navigating adult expectations. He has openly acknowledged that being a teen idol was intoxicating. The adoration was constant. Women threw themselves at him. The temptation was everywhere, backstage, at hotels, on tour. He later said he was grateful he did not give in to that lifestyle. He understood early how easily fame could destroy integrity, how quickly a careless decision could ruin a future marriage, even before Debbie was his wife. That awareness did not make the temptation disappear. It only made the internal battle quieter and heavier. Then the applause began to fade. By 19, the teen idol wave crashed. Trends changed. The screaming slowed. The carefully built image that once fueled success suddenly felt like a burden. Worse, financial mismanagement drained the fortune the family had worked for. Millions disappeared. Donny has described the humiliation of realizing that despite global fame, stability was gone. The collapse was not just professional, it was psychological. He struggled to transition into adulthood. Audiences still saw the boy. He wanted to be taken seriously as a man. He experimented with new looks, appeared in unexpected music videos, and even sought advice from Michael Jackson about reinventing himself. At one point, he considered changing his name entirely. None of it worked quickly. Rejection followed reinvention attempts. He described those years as bitter, confusing, and deeply painful. He felt irrelevant, forgotten, angry. It was during that emotional freefall, when applause had turned to silence, that Debbie became something far greater than a supportive spouse. She became the only person who saw him without the spotlight, without the costume, without the expectations. She did not see a failed teen idol. She saw a man struggling to survive. The woman he stole and never let go. Long before stadium lights and magazine covers, before the pressure of reinvention and financial collapse, Donny Osmond noticed a girl named Debbie Glenn. She was 15. He was 16. At the time, she was dating his older brother, Jay. Decades later, Donny would recount the story with a grin and a touch of mischief, admitting in interviews, "She dated my brother and I stole her." It sounds dramatic, almost playful. But the reality was layered with patience, timing, and quiet determination. Their connection actually stretches back even further than their teenage years. Donny has shared that he first met Debbie when she was only 3 years old and he was 5. The meeting happened at an airport in Billings, Montana, during a layover. Debbie's family recognized the Osmond brothers from their appearances on national television and asked for autographs. It was an ordinary encounter in a busy terminal, the kind of moment that usually fades into memory. Neither child could have imagined that this brief introduction would eventually anchor nearly 5 decades of marriage. Years later, fate intervened again, this time more deliberately. Donny was on a double date. He was seeing a girl named Tammy. His brother Jay brought Debbie. The evening included an Elton John concert. When Elton sat at the piano and began singing Your Song, Donny glanced across and felt something shift. He has said that in that moment he quietly told himself, "I'm going to marry that girl someday." It was not love at first sight. It was recognition. A certainty that surprised even him. Winning her heart was not immediate. It took 3 years of persistence. Debbie was not chasing fame. She was not dazzled by teen idol hysteria. That may have been exactly why Donny fell harder. She saw him as a person, not a poster. On May 8, 1978, they were married at the Salt Lake Temple. The decision was not universally celebrated. Donny's father, George Osmond, reportedly warned him that marriage at the height of his career could damage his image and slow his momentum. "Well, there goes your career," he told his son. Donny chose Debbie anyway. In that choice, he prioritized a private future over public approval. Their early married life was far from glamorous. The Osmond fortune had been shaken by poor investments. Stability was uncertain. While Donny worked relentlessly to rebuild his image and credibility, Debbie focused on building a home. They welcomed 5 sons, Don Jr., Jeremy, Brandon, Chris, and Josh. She managed the house, the schedules, the emotional needs of growing boys. He carried the weight of professional expectations. She carried the weight of everything else. When Donny later descended into what he has described as his dark years, battling anxiety, identity crisis, and the humiliation of fading fame, Debbie did not retreat. He admitted during interviews that he was in such a desperate place that she pulled him out. She became the steady presence when he felt unstable, the calm when he was bitter, the anchor when his confidence fractured. He has said repeatedly that when making decisions, she comes first, then his children, then his grandchildren. Only after that does he consider himself. That order is not sentimental. It reflects experience. He knows what it feels like to lose everything that can be measured publicly. He also knows what remains when the applause disappears. So why is she rarely beside him on red carpets or award stages? Because from the very beginning, they agreed that their marriage would not become part of the show. The decision to disappear. When Donny's career found new life through Broadway roles, national television competitions, and a successful Las Vegas residency alongside his sister Marie, the spotlight returned with force. The residency ran for more than a decade, drawing loyal fans who had followed him since childhood. Producers called again. Interview requests increased. Invitations to red carpets and award shows multiplied. The industry that once felt closed to him reopened its doors. But Debbie did not step into that light. To many fans, her absence created curiosity. Why wasn't she by his side at premieres? Why didn't she attend every major public event? Why did she remain mostly behind the scenes while her husband rebuilt a global career? In 2020, Donny addressed it directly. In a social media post, he explained that early in their marriage, they made a conscious decision to keep their personal relationship and home life out of the public eye. It was not secrecy born from scandal. It was strategy born from experience. After decades in show business, he understood how invasive public attention could become. He had seen fellow entertainers lose marriages under relentless scrutiny. He had lived through financial disaster and public embarrassment. He knew that fame has a way of magnifying weaknesses and feeding on private conflict. Once cameras enter a relationship, they do not leave quietly. Debbie never aspired to be a public figure. She did not want interviews, headlines, or celebrity status. She wanted a stable home, 5 grounded sons, and a husband who returned from tours to something real. In an industry where many spouses become extensions of brand identity, Debbie resisted that transformation. She chose normalcy over recognition. That choice was not without sacrifice. During Donny's appearance on Dancing with the Stars, he performed close, romantic routines with professional partners week after week. Millions watched. For any spouse, that situation could invite discomfort. Debbie handled it privately. She did not comment publicly. She did not seek attention. She did not compete for visibility. She trusted the foundation of their marriage. Occasionally, she attended award ceremonies or charity events, and photographs from those appearances show warmth and unity. But they were exceptions, not the rule. She did not adopt the lifestyle of constant exposure. She allowed Donny to be the performer while she remained the stabilizer. In interviews, Donny often returns to the same phrase, "She keeps my feet on the ground." When he told people in 2022 that Debbie gave his life stability, it was not a sentimental line crafted for publicity. It was recognition of history. During the years when his career collapsed, when anxiety overtook confidence, when bitterness clouded his perspective, Debbie was not under stage lights. She was managing the household, raising their sons, protecting them from the turbulence of public life. She carried the invisible weight so he could recover. Over time, that protective boundary became part of their survival. By limiting exposure, they reduced external pressure. They avoided turning disagreements into headlines. They refused to allow their marriage to become content. In a culture where visibility often equals relevance, Debbie's absence speaks differently. It signals intention. It reflects a couple who understood that privacy is not weakness, it is defense. Grandchildren, regret, and a different priority. Time softened Donny's public image. The teen idol became a grandfather. Today, he and Debbie share 14 grandchildren. At family gatherings, he deliberately steps back. He has said he chooses to be grandpa in the corner, not the celebrity. In Las Vegas, he performs a duet with an AI version of his teenage self, singing Puppy Love. The technology required using his grandson Daxton as a physical reference. Watching that younger version of himself on stage is emotional. He sees the boy who had everything and lost it. He sees the kid who didn't understand fame. But when the curtain closes, he goes home to Debbie. In May, celebrating 47 years of marriage, he called their life together a crazy adventure through show business. He described her as his partner, anchor, inspiration. For her birthday, he wrote that time somehow makes her more radiant instead of less. And yet, she still avoids the spotlight. At 66, Donny has finally admitted that the reason is simple but heavy. Fame nearly broke him once. He refuses to let it touch the one part of his life that kept him alive. He has lived through screaming fans, financial disaster, humiliation, reinvention, temptation, and depression. He survived because there was one place untouched by performance. Do you think more celebrity couples would survive if they protected their private lives the way Donny and Debbie did? Share your thoughts below. And if you enjoy stories that go beyond the spotlight, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.